So as Scott introduced, my name's Nathan Roth, and I lead social and digital for a Canadian telecom. So if you catch me saying a boot, please don't laugh too hard. So I'm going to start with a quick spoiler here. In the next 20 minutes, what I'm going to share is how your company can save millions in innovation and support costs, how you can build an army of brand advocates, and how you can create a best-in-class customer experience, all through a community. So now that I jumped all the way to the end, let's go to the very beginning of the brand that I work for, Koodo Mobile. We started only 5 years ago, and we had the goal of fighting against the unjust and the greedy practices that we all know are all too common in telecommunications. And so in the last few years, we've actually been able to get rid of contracts, extra fees, and even long distance and roaming throughout the nation. But in order to do that, we needed to keep our costs extremely low. So we are looking for customers that are willing to give up a little bit of their time to save a little bit of money. So we needed to build in a culture of self-service from the get-go, where customers are expected to find their own answers and help themselves. And the other beautiful thing is that when we started, it was in the midst of the social revolution. And customers were excited because for the first time they could publish, and it gave them a voice, I should say people in general. And marketers and business folks were excited because they could have a dialogue, a true dialogue online with their customers for the very first time. It put both parties on a level playing field that allows for real, genuine interactions and dialogue. So we launched Facebook in 2010, and we're actually the first telecom to open up our wall. And customers loved this. They came in pouring in with their questions left and right, and we were hiring more and more Koodo reps to answer these questions. Unfortunately, what we soon realized is that that one-to-one interaction is just as costly and time-consuming as a traditional phone call. So we needed to find a solution that was less reliant on our internal employees and was more efficient. We needed to keep those costs down. So we started to look at the options available to us. There was Twitter, there was chat, and then there were these community forums. And the latter really stands out and really stood out when it comes to reducing support costs. So when we put them side by side, that was just absolutely clear, and it wasn't even fair. But I won't bore you and go through all of these. I'll just share three. For one, Get Satisfaction is completely, has a complete responsive design. So whether you pull it up on your phone, your tablet, or your desktop, you get the full functionality. On the flip side, if you pull up in the Facebook app a brand page, you can't even ask a question. Another one is that Get Satisfaction is completely indexed by all the major search engines, including Google. And not only that, it has fantastic SEO. So you get a bunch of organic visits, in our case, millions. Whereas Facebook, your timeline and your wall is completely within the walled garden. And so that doesn't show up on Google at all, and you're missing out on a ton of visits. And then finally, once you're in there, Get Satisfaction allows you to search the content. So it has that knowledge base that you can draw upon. Whereas Facebook doesn't have a search within it of the timeline. And so customers end up asking the same questions over and over and over again, sometimes within minutes of one another, and your reps need to answer them over and over. So what became abundantly clear to us is that Facebook was built really first and foremost for marketing and publishing, whereas communities were much more dynamic. They could handle support better, innovation, and much more. And best of all, if you look here on this graph, they're the most customer-focused of all the social networks and the most two-way. There's real, genuine dialogue, not just between Koodo and the brand, but customers between each other. So in September of 2011, we launched our community. And we chose Get Satisfaction because it has the cleanest and simplest user experience. And that really stands out. Much like Apple, they focus on what's really important and keep it clean. versus some of the other guys were focusing more on adding as many bells and whistles in there as possible, and it ended up making it complicated for customers. I like to think the community is so easy that if my grandma were to ask a question or my young niece, that they'd be able to find an answer, unlike a traditional forum, which is very much for the tech savvy and the very knowledgeable. And so what we saw was that visitors started pouring in. In the first few months, it was actually absolutely exponential, which is actually off this graph a little bit. But what we're still seeing is that in this last year here is that there's steady growth, and we have no idea when it's going to end. In the last 3 months alone, we even saw record visits. But beyond just coming there, these customers, because Get Satisfaction recommends the right answers to you, allows you to search, is easy to navigate, integrates our FAQs, 99.6% of our visitors ended up finding their answer without even having to ask a question, which is hugely efficient. Only 0.4% had to ask a question. And so these guys came, they found their answer, and they left, and they went on. And I like to use a sports analogy here, where the best referee is the one that you don't notice. In much the same way, the best support is the one that's so quick, so painless and seamless that you go on your day and it's barely memorable. But of course, that 0.4% still adds up to quite a few questions because we're a telecom and we're quickly growing. So we wanted to figure out a way to have those remaining questions answered not by our Koodo reps, but instead by fellow customers. So we needed a way to get them to stick around and not just drive through. And so we added game mechanics for that added boost. And game mechanics, for those that aren't familiar, are the elements of video games that make them so addictive. Games, points, levels, missions. But they're all around us. They're not just in Super Mario Brothers. So by a raise of hands, how many of you are on LinkedIn? Pretty much everybody. What you may not have noticed is that in the right-hand side of your column is a profile completeness bar. And there's game mechanics integrated seamlessly throughout that website, to the point that most people just don't even really recognize that it's a game. So we see here 25% beside our profile, and we're competitive, and we don't like unfinished ends or loose ends. So we start adding our picture and where we went to school and so forth. And then we get to 100%, and we're satisfied to have that associated with ourselves. But most importantly, LinkedIn is over the moon about it because we've collectively, for free, built them the largest network of professionals there is that's now valued over $1 billion. So these things are really powerful. But this goes in stark contrast to what traditional economists will tell you, that you need to reward someone with cash incentive in order for them to do anything. But the reality is that social capital is just as motivating, if not more motivating. So game mechanics leverage the personal and the social motivators, such as competition, recognition, and reputation, that drives someone into action. So we integrated the game mechanics, and we kept hearing the same comment over and over again. I'm addicted to the Koodo community. But beyond that nice tap on the back, we saw some real business results where the rubber hits the road. We saw an increase in self-help of 15%. We saw active users go up 72%. We saw visits go up 42%. And the goal that we were really after, peer-to-peer support, customers sharing answers with fellow customers, went up 21%. And that was all just in the first 2 months. And so we saved a bunch of costs, which was great, but we wanted to save even more. We wanted to get that peer-to-peer all the way up, that every single question in the community was answered by a customer. So in all that gamification data that we got back, beyond those results, the most important thing we found actually was a little nugget of truth. And it hides behind this simple riddle here. What does the trucker of an 18-wheeler, a wealthy housewife, an intellectual PhD student, and a geeky mobile blogger have in common? Well, it turned out that they were our very best customers and our very best community members. And it's not what we expected either, and it's not who we target from a marketing perspective. That's for sure. But what we found out was that we had these super users that were providing the bulk of the answers. So not only were they big fans of Koodo, they were advocating us on their social networks, whether it was on or offline, but they were also customers on a mission to help fellow customers. They were hobbyists, they knew technology, they knew mobile phones, they knew them like the back of their hand, in fact, better than I know phones, or most of my colleagues even. But the real kicker is that they were spending, each of them, 15 hours a week in this Koodo community. Which still blows me away today, and they're answering hundreds of questions. And that's exactly where we learned that one special secret. It's that you don't need everybody in your community for peer-to-peer support. You just need the few. You need the 1%, not the wealthy fat cats on Wall Street, but the super users in your community that are true fans, that are passionate, and they love it from a genuine place in their heart. So the question then became, how can we find more of these super users to get to 100% peer-to-peer support? And how could we get those that we already had to engage even more? And so we created a program we call the Mobile Masters, which is a community loyalty program that rewards those that provide the most support. Excuse me. And of course, if we go back to what we learned in gamification, we didn't want to pay them. So these guys are completely unpaid. But we do reward them with that emotional capital, which is really some exclusive perks and rewards. So for example, we really put them on a pedestal. So digitize them, put them in front of our customers, and they get that status and that bragging rights for something that they really love, their passion and their hobby. So they're made to be the experts that they really and truly are. And they're rewarded for all that volunteering work to help us help our customers and to help us keep our costs down. But we also give them access to programs and access to people. So when we launched our new application, we involved them during the development phase. We took their feedback and we incorporated it, for example. Also, time to time they have a gripe and they want to air it. We connect them with the subject matter expert in our company so that they can have that direct conversation. And sometimes the SME agrees with them, and sometimes they don't. But what's important is that they have that conversation. And sometimes it's even gone as far as the person responsible is our CEO. And these everyday customers have had a conversation with our CEO. So, but what's really important here? Well, in the first month alone, we saw more super users join us than we had in the previous 12 months combined. We quickly became the most active and visited support community in telecommunications in Canada, which is no small feat considering how young we are and small we are relative to our competition. And best of all, this one blows me away, we basically got there. Over 99.9% of our visitors get help without the involvement of a single employee, whether it's a rep or a management employee. And not only that, they got it within an average of under 12 minutes. So these customers, or mobile masters, are basically crawling over each other, fighting to get the answer so that they can get more points and that they can get even higher status than their fellow masters. And so we saw massive reductions in support costs, all the way up to the point that we saw a 44% increase in call deflections year over year. But support is not everything that a community can do, and there's much more. And part of it is the customer experience. So like we just discussed, there's traditional support. Someone has an issue, we identify it, it gets resolved, in our case, from a peer. But really progressive systems are ones that prevent these issues. They instead find the root cause of the problem that's underlying in that question that a customer had or the problem that they have identified. And then it gets fixed so that the hundreds or thousands of customers that come after them don't have to ask that same question and don't even experience that same pain point. So we created a listening program across our entire company. So every single employee in our company gets a custom report to their responsibilities based on what's heard in social media and most importantly in our Get Satisfaction community, where the feedback is long form, there's multiple people adding their take and their opinion, unlike a tweet that's 140 characters and usually someone just saying that they stubbed their toe. Or in our case, F Koodo. So these reports then get sent to the subject matter expert at whatever interval they want. So in an example here, John, our pricing manager, he launches a new rate plan into the market. And he immediately then gets feedback on only that rate plan pulled into the custom report. And he knows what's wrong, what's working, if he should change something. But best of all, he gets an opportunity to fix it. We actually call these pain points treasures in our company, because if you are made aware of a problem that exists, it's a great opportunity to improve the customer experience. And that's really what this does at the end of the day. It allows every single customer or every single employee rather, in your company to take ownership and accountability for their impact on the customer experience. But beyond that, we also wanted to actively partner with our customers and use the wisdom of crowds. And the great thing about Get Satisfaction is that not only does support come out of the box, but as does a great ideation or crowdsourcing platform. And so it was already running and working, so we just needed to guide our customers there and let them know that it existed. And we got, and they really appreciated it. It made them feel heard and that they were listened to. And so there's a couple of wins that have come out of this. One is that we have thousands of ideas that have been submitted so far. But beyond that, we've actually been able to fix 74 of them, and we plan on fixing many more. And that's really allowed us to make our customers feel heard and appreciated. But most importantly, it improved the customer experience to the point that Koodo is now, as you can see there, the J.D. Power winner. But what that means is that we're Canada's favorite telecom, we're the fastest growing telecom, and we have the highest satisfaction rates and word of mouth by a country mile relative to our competitors. So our Get Satisfaction community has really transformed our business at the end of the day, our marketing, our support, our innovation. And so I want to leave you with one thought, and that's that, and I truly believe this, communities on or offline are the most powerful opportunities and tools that we as people and businesses have today. They helped us reduce one of the largest costs of any business, one-to-one support, and they also allowed us to innovate and create a best-in-class customer experience. So please, if you can, start a community, and if you have already, really double down and invest in it. Start it, do it, you need it. Thank you very much.